Hello there. I am live, apparently, according to the Facebook gods, such as they are. I am so thrilled to be here with you guys today, here in all the feels. Today I'm talking about tarot. I'm talking about how a tarot deck works. I'm talking about what I use it for. I'm going to be explaining to you guys all the various facets of the deck and showing you some cards. I have carefully set up this thing that I call the card cam, and I'm hoping that that works and shows you guys the cards. I'm hoping that you can hear this actually as I go through it. So let me I just want to make sure that this is all working. Here we go. Yes, I think this is going. Yes. Oh my God. It's all happening. Exciting. Okay. So, let me get this party started. So, tarot. Tarot is one of my absolute very favorite topics. It's one of my very favorite things to talk about. And it's actually the heart of a set of practices that I have evolved for myself that really help me push back against some of my tendencies that don't really serve me and lean into tendencies that actually do serve me. So those of you that know me know that I often sort of think about myself as somebody who's an overthinker. I totally believe, and the tarot deck reflects this, that each person has all of these different facets of who they are as a person. And what can happen over the course of a human life, either because of the way that we're raised or the way that our tendencies are, is we tend to kind of lean into certain things that feel comfortable and lean away from things that feel uncomfortable. And for me, the kind of thing that I was always rewarded for in my household when I was a kid was that it was really important to be smart. And it was really important to be a good thinker. And I actually, when I think about it, I do not actually think that my greatest strength is thinking, even though I think of myself as a reasonably intelligent person. And what a tarot deck allows me to do is lean into these other aspects of my nature. First of all, so that I just feel like a more complete person. And also so that I can move through this world in a more effective way. Because if there's one thing that I can tell you as somebody who's been a coach for a while now and who was a yoga teacher for a long time, is that when we only rely on one part of our nature, there's this sort of fragileness that happens, right? Like as a human being, you want to be a more whole and complete person. So that's why I'm talking about it today. Oh, the other reason why I wanted to share with you about this today is that I talk about tarot a lot in my work, and I didn't want you guys to be like, what the heck is she talking about? I don't know what she's saying when she talks about cups or pentacles or swords or major arcana or the Fool card. I don't want you guys to be at sea when I talk about that. So first, I want to give you a little bit of history so that you're not like, what does tarot even come from? Is it something that came out of a comic book 10 years ago, or is it something that's older than that? There is this great school of thought that said that tarot was Egyptian, and that is not exactly quite true, although there are all different types of cultural influences, which I'm going to tell you about now. So a tarot deck is a form of playing cards. And playing cards probably originated in China in the 10th century and then were brought to Europe by Islamic merchants coming from Egypt in the 14th. So that's part of why a certain group of people had the idea that the tarot deck was Egyptian, although it's probably not. Maybe way, way far back in some way, but probably not. So the tarot deck specifically is a deck of cards that developed in northern Italy in the early 15th century. So it's a medieval thing. And the primary use at that time was to play a game called Tarocchi, Tarrochi, Tarocchi. But then by 1507, Marseille, France had become a center of tarot cards outside of Italy. And over the next 200 years, French manufacturers standardized the number of cards and the symbolism and imagery on the cards and the order of the cards, how they appear in the deck. Then by the 18th century, the symbolism that we largely see today had been set. In a lot of cases, it had been adopted throughout the continent of Europe. So most modern decks are based on this Tarot of Marseille, which doesn't actually refer to a specific deck, but which is but it refers to the sort of standardized arrangement of this what numbers appear on which cards and what the symbols are that appear on the different cards. So I wanted to give you just a little bit of background about that. Oh, and then so that you know about the deck that's most commonly used now. So the deck that people use today usually is this deck known as the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. It was published in 1909, and that name, Rider-Waite-Smith, the Rider part refers to the publisher of the deck, which was a company. The Waite part refers to this guy named Arthur Waite, who designed the look of the cards and sort of wrote out the interpretations of the cards. And he worked very closely with the artist whose name was Pamela Smith. And she's the one that actually drew the cards. And the thing that is significant about the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I'll explain the structure of the deck a little bit more as we go on, but the thing that is important about the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is that previous versions of the deck, most of the usual previous versions of the deck, had 22 of the cards of the deck with pictures on them. And the rest of the deck has 78 cards. The rest of them were symbols instead of pictures or drawings. And so the great thing that Pamela Smith did is that Pamela Smith, she took whatever Arthur Waite's descriptions were, and as far as they can tell, he sort of gave her an outline of the cards in some, for some cards, but for a lot of the cards, she actually thought about what her interpretation of was of the cards, and she actually made the cards herself, came up with the pictures that are on the cards. So and then one last thing that I wanted you to know is that Arthur Waite, his conception of the cards came from the fact that he was the member of an organization called the Order of the Golden Dawn, which is basically a group of British sort of, I don't know, probably upper middle class guys that was founded in 1887 and active through the late 19th and early 20th century. These dudes were interested in magic. They were interested in the occult. And so Arthur Waite was a member of that group. And it's like a fairly well-known group. People wrote about it. And he, one of the things you had to do to be inducted into that group was design your own deck of cards. And so the Rider-Waite-Smith deck is Arthur Waite's deck that he designed as part of his induction into the Order of the Golden Dawn. The Order of the Golden Dawn is actually pretty goofy, in my opinion, but the tarot deck is, it's good shit. Okay, so the reason why I wanted you to know all this about the history of the tarot deck is because I wanted you to understand that the tarot deck is something that is kind of percolated down through a bunch of different cultures and a bunch of different periods of time. So it ends up being this kind of like, this is a word that I love that this friend of mine used with me a couple of days ago, this palimpsest. A palimpsest is, it's basically a manuscript sheet that has been written on and erased and written on multiple times. So a tarot deck is a cultural artifact. It's like a piece of art in that it has passed through many people's hands. It has passed through time. It has passed through many different places on the planet. The symbols that you see in the deck are, even though Pamela Smith is the one that drew the deck, right? When she drew it, and Arthur Waite's the one that came up with the ideas for the cards, right? When these folks were coming up with these ideas for the deck, they were distilling ideas that had traveled a long way through time and that had picked up all of this symbolism. So what ends up happening is that a tarot deck is extremely evocative. And I love that word evocative because that is the primary way that I use the deck. I use the deck as something to evoke meaning in myself. So your primary associations with the deck might be that you associate the deck with divination, with prediction, right? Where somebody gets a deck out and you ask a particular question, kind of like a Ouija board, right? Where you ask a particular question, then the deck tells you what's happening, right? I don't use the deck in that way. I don't use the deck predictively. I use it interpretively. So what'll happen, and I'll talk to you more about this toward the end of this chat. So the way that I tend to use it is when I have a particular, I actually do a draw each day to sort of ask about what the coming day might hold. So I guess in that way it is predictive in some sense. But I never expect that the tarot deck is actually going to like predict the future, right? And then at the end of the day, I look back at the card that I drew at the beginning of the day or the night before, and I reflect on what elements of the card were present in my experience of that day. I'm going to say that part again. The way that I use the deck is that I'll do a draw the night before or the morning of a particular day. And the question that I hold in my mind and heart is like, what will the day bring? That's one of two questions I ask. And then at the end of the day, I look back at what my card was. I think about the card that I drew. And I say to myself, what aspects of this card were actually reflected in my day? And most of the time, there is something to be drawn from that, right? Like sometimes it's like, oh, well, this card, I don't really understand what this card has to say about my day. Sometimes it's absolutely crystal clear how the card relates to your day. And sometimes it's like, you know what? I thought about it. I looked at this card. I don't actually know what the heck this card is saying. I don't actually feel that this card particularly is reflective of my day. And that's fine too. Yeah, because it's just for fun. Okay. So I want to talk for a minute about what I mean when I say that the cards are evocative. So here's the first card that I'm going to show you guys. And I hope that, so this card that I had here, this first one that I had on the screen, this is the Ace of Cups. You've probably looked at that for a long time now. The aces of each suit, I'm actually going to explain this a lot more, but suffice to say for now that the ace of each suit is said to carry the sort of, I'm going to use this great word, the sort of prana, the seed prana. The prana is a Sanskrit word. I know it from yoga, which is, it means like the life force of a particular card, right? The energetic power of a particular card or a particular suit, right? So it's said that the aces contain the prana, like the seed life force of each suit. So that just happens to be the Ace of Cups. Here's a card I'm going to show you to sort of talk about this idea that cards are evocative. This is a card. I was actually hanging out with some friends last night and doing some draws with them and playing some games with them, playing with the deck. And this card is known as the Tower card. And when you look at that, just take a moment to check it out and see what that card evokes for you. What comes up for you when you look at that card? So I'm hoping you can see it clearly on the card cam. So I'm just going to kind of describe it in the most sort of basic terms, right? The Tower card shows a tower, and it's been hit by lightning, and the lightning has hit the tower, and the top of the tower is in flames, and there's a crown or a turret on the top of the tower that is sort of popping off. It's like it's been knocked off by the lightning. And then the windows are full of flames as well. The tower is set on the top of a tall cliff, and people are falling out of the tower, falling out toward the what looks like pretty sharp rocks on the cliff. So when you look at this picture, when I say it is evocative, what does it evoke for you? Like, that's kind of the question. And one of my favorite ways, especially when people are new to the practice of working with a deck, one of my favorite things to ask them or to talk about, one of my favorite things to ask for myself, and this is the way that I introduce myself to this, to working with a deck, is just to say, well, what do you see? Because different people will see different things, because each little drawing, each card is a work of art. So like I just described sort of the bare outlines of what's happening in this card. The next question that you can kind of ask is, okay, well, that's what I see. What do I have any elements in my own life that are reflected by this card? So like one question I was asking my friends last night was, have you ever had a time in your life when the bottom dropped out? Have you ever had a time in your life when it felt like you were struck by lightning? Have you ever had a time in your life when it felt like everything lit on fire? And sometimes that can be a positive experience or a negative experience, a not so nice experience, right? So that's the Tower card. The Tower card generally, so now I'll explain to you the classic associations with this card, which may align with your associations with what you see on this card, but which may be totally different from your associations or the kind of feeling or the hit that you get from this card. And there's nothing wrong with you having a different hit, a different sense of the card than the classical associations with the card, right? You don't have to, the card cam just went out. Oopsie. Hang on just a minute. Technical difficulties. No, there it comes. Oh. There we go. Okay. Enter Studio. Okay. There we go. Card cam is back. Woohoo! Card cam's back. Okay. So that's the Tower card. Okay. Let me show you a different card that is evocative, I think, in a different way. So there's the Tower. Here's a card. This is the Four of Swords. This is the Four of Swords. So I'm going to just describe it. And then I'm just going to describe the bare outline of what I see. You can be thinking about what you see as well, right? So what I see in this card is a figure. It looks like it could be a person. It could be a statue, like made of stone, lying down in what looks like a kind of a sanctuary or a church. The light in the church or the sanctuary is kind of shadowy, so it's unclear again if it's a statue or if that's a person that's lying down there. And it looks like there's one sword sort of underneath this platform or this raised surface that this person or the statue is lying on. And then there are three swords sort of suspended on the wall above the person. And then even though the sort of swords on the wall and the figure, the stone figure or the person that's lying there, they're kind of in shadow, right? The light is very diffuse. In the upper left-hand corner of the illustration of the card, there is this beautiful stained glass window. And you guys probably can't see it, but if you look really closely, what is being depicted in the window is somebody, a kneeling figure, like it looks like they're like receiving a blessing from a standing figure. So that's kind of what I see in this card. And it may be, so like you'll have your own things that you feel that you see in this card, right? So one interpretation that you could have of this card, it may seem kind of like creepy, right? It's like, is that a coffin or kind of a mausoleum that person is lying there? Like, is this showing some, like a crypt? Are the swords on the wall, are they threatening, is kind of a question that you might sort of feel about this card. Is this card somehow a representation of death, right? That could be something that somebody could pick up from this card. But I will tell you that the classic sort of interpretation of this card especially because the suit of swords, this card is the Four of Swords, so it's associated with the suit of swords. The suit of swords is associated with thoughts, with your ability to think, with the part of you that thinks. So when you, so the fact that in this picture, in this drawing, this dude, this character, this person, or this statue is lying down, part of what this picture, what this drawing is suggesting in the sort of classical version, the classical interpretation, is that this is a card that is actually about rest. It's a card that's actually about rest. And it may be about death in the sense that death is some kind of final rest. But it doesn't necessarily need to be about death, right? It could just be about rest in the sense that all of us need rest, right? And there is also the fact that even though there is this depiction of the figure, here she is lying down and is at rest and is very still, the window in the corner seems to imply that there is this renewal or rebirth kind of a thing happening, right? There is this sort of, the light in the rest of the scene, the light over the figure is kind of more dim, but then the picture, the stained glass, seems to promise some kind of a rebirth of some sort, right? So those are just two examples that I wanted to share with you. I'll leave that up there so that you can look at it. Those are just two examples that I wanted to share with you of how a tarot card can evoke something different for each person and how it might evoke something totally different for you. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the basic structure of a tarot deck, okay? So let me do this. Oh, that makes me feel very fancy to make such a technical switch like that. Okay, so the basic structure of how a tarot deck works is that there are 78 cards. There are 78 cards. And the first 22 cards are known as trumps. Let me put the card cam back on and show you an example of a trump. Okay, so the trumps include, for example, the trumps include the Tower card that you just saw. This is a classic, very well-known trump, the Hanged Man. Hanged Man is a famous trump. The trumps have numbers, but they do not have suits, right? So you can see that the number there on the Hanged Man is 12. The Hanged Man is card number 12. I actually once, I was just talking about this on a podcast I was on with a friend of mine. I once had a client who literally told me she was describing how she felt, and she literally said she felt like she was hanging from a tree branch by her ankle, which was amazing. So that's an example of a trump. The classic very first trump that you see in the deck is the Fool card. That's this one. I've written about that before on my blog, right? And so the thing that's amazing is that, okay, the trumps, there are 22 trumps, but they're not numbered that way. The way that the trumps work is that the first card, which is this card, which is the Fool, is numbered 0. And then subsequent trumps, then the numbering, the number 1 actually starts with the next card, which is the Magician. Yeah. This is card number, this is the, it's the third trump, but it's card number 2, right? The High Priestess. Yeah. Look at how she's got the crescent moon there at her feet. Here's card number 3. It's really the fourth trump, the Empress. This card is associated astrologically with the planet Venus, which is why she's got that heart and that symbol down at her feet, right? So on and so forth. You go through the trumps, and then the last trump, the final trump, is this trump called the World card. This card is associated with mastery, with attainment, with attainments in the world that you live in, the world that you move through, and in the realm of spirit. So that's the World card. So there are 22 trumps, and those 22 trump cards are known as the major arcana of the deck. The major arcana of the deck. Then the rest of the cards, so whatever 78 minus 22 is, 50, 56, the rest of the 6 cards are what are known as minor arcana, and those are the suits cards. So each suit has 14 cards. So sometimes people will describe the trumps as kind of like a 5th suit. Generally, I don't really like to think of it that way. I kind of think of the trumps, the major arcana cards, as being their own kind of thing. And this is why I'm going to talk about that a little bit now. Let me put out, so here's the Hanged Man, here's the Fool, here's the World card. Let me put these two side by side. Let's see if they'll fit together. More or less. Okay, I think that will work. And you know what? I'm going to do this. Put them the other way. Okay. There we go. Love that. Okay. So one of the ways that people think about the major arcana cards, which are the trumps, is that it starts with the Fool and it ends with the World. So the Fool card is about, the Fool is a figure who's kind of a tabula rasa, one of the ways that, or like a blank slate. One of the ways that Arthur Waite described the Fool card is that he said it was the soul in search of experience. And when you look at the Fool card, you'll see that the Fool is sort of dancing on the edge of a cliff, or she's standing or she's walking near the edge of a cliff. She has on this beautiful outfit, right? She's carrying a little blossom in her hand, and she has this kind of a hobo bag. She's got a long stick, or really it's a staff, really in the realm, in this particular symbolic realm, this staff that she has on her shoulder is a wand. And I've talked about the Fool card a lot. I posted about her in this group. I wrote a blog about it, so you can read more about the Fool card on my blog. But the Fool, one of the ways that people think about the trumps is that each trump card is actually a different archetypal version, a different part of the journey of the Fool. The basic idea is that we are all the Fool, right? Like we all start out our lives as souls in search of experience. And we all move through these different phases where we learn new things, we gain new strengths, and then and then sometimes we fail, right? Sometimes we fall down. We have triumphs and we have difficulties. We fall in love. We learn new things. People betray us. We get stuck in our ways. We attain a certain degree of success, but it doesn't actually feel like success. We'll have some type of spiritual enlightenment that will be accompanied by a failure in the actual external world, right? So there like sometimes there'll be a dichotomy between what you feel on the inside about your journey as a person, whether it's a failure or a success, and what's happening on the outside, right? Where maybe in the external world, you're really successful, but on the inside, you feel like shit about yourself. Or sometimes the opposite will happen, right? You'll have a failure, what looks like a failure to the outside world, but on the inside, you've learned something, or you've gained something, or you've grown, or something fell apart so that something else could be born. That is kind of reflective of a pandemic experience for a lot of people, I think. Yeah, so the beginning of the journey of the major arcana of a tarot deck is the Fool. The Fool is like she's a blank slate. That's why her number is 0, is because she's a blank slate, right? That's like, she's looking up. She's not focused on the details of like balancing her checkbook and making sure she doesn't fall off this cliff, right? Her eyes are up. She's taking in the world around her. She has this little friend with her, right? Her little white dog. Then the journey that the Fool takes, she travels through all of these different experiences in the rest of the trumps, like the Hanged Man, which I showed you, like the High Priestess and the Empress, like the figure of strength, the Wheel of Fortune, all of these different sort of states of being, the Fool travels through all those states. And then the final card, which is number 20, it's numbered 21, right? The World card, but it's really 22, right? In the final card, what that card represents, it's a card of attainment, and it represents mastery in every realm, in every realm. So instead of this thing where there's success on the outside, but on the inside you feel like shit, or instead of the situation where there's success on the inside, but the outside everything falls apart, right? What the World card is about is mastery on every level, or insight or wisdom in every way, in every aspect of yourself as a person, right? So the World card, it's like aspirational, right? You're not actually going to be dancing through the sky, holding a magic wand in each hand, clothed only in the gauzy garment of your wisdom, right? But that's sort of the ideal, or that's the how can I put it? I don't want to use the word ideal because it implies that's the only way to be, right? But what the World card holds up to us is this this dream of growing and growing in wisdom, in perfecting your wisdom more and more, right? So that's what's happening in the major arcana. Okay. As usual, I'm just droning on and on. I'm like, 30 minutes have gone by. Okay, I thought this would take 15. All right, let's talk about the minor arcana. So I talked about the first 22 cards of the deck. The trumps, right? The latter part of the deck is taken up by the 4 suits, okay? So there are 4 suits in a tarot deck, and I'm going to show you cards from each suit, just so that you get a little bit of a feeling for that. So I had shown you the 4 of Swords. Let me show you a wand card. What's a fun wand card? Oh, this is a fun one. This is the 5 of Wands. It's the 5 of Wands. So in a tarot deck, wands are what you and I might think of as staffs, right? So you see here the 5 of Wands. There are 5 staffs in this picture. Those staffs are the wands, okay? So that's different than what you and I might think of. And it's actually different than what is shown on the World card, right? Like on the World card, those little things in her hands, those are also known as wands. But this is the 5 of Wands. So it's like, here's the 5 of Wands. It's like, what's happening here? Are they playing? Are they jousting? Is it a violent fight? What's happening, right? So that's a Wands card. I had shown you a Swords card, but let me show you another one of my favorites. Oh, this is a dark freaking card. This is one of the darkest cards in the whole deck. This is a Swords card. The suit, this is the 5 of Swords. Swords are known as, quote unquote, a difficult suit. Because they're associated with your mind, right? And your mind kicks your fucking ass, not to put too fine a point on that. So this is the 5 of Swords. It's like, what's happening in this picture? There's this sort of sharp, spiky quality to the sky. In the foreground, there's a guy holding 3 swords, and it's possible that you can't tell at this point, but it's like he's kind of smirking, right? And in the background, I don't know if you can tell from the camera, but the 2 figures in the background, especially in the far distance, the one figure in the far distance looks like he or she is sort of has his head in his hands, like he's grieving or in pain. It's a dark card, 5 of Swords. Very intense card. Let's see here. Cups. Let me show you a Cups card. I talked actually about the 4 of Cups in a blog I wrote recently. Oh, I'll show you my favorite Cups card, or one of my favorites. They're all my favorite. I have a lot of favorites. This is one of my favorite Cups card. That's the 8 of Cups. So it's kind of this is meant to be kind of a shadowy landscape. It's often described as the landscape is in a shadow, but the the sun moon figure, like the heavenly body that you see in the upper left hand corner of the card, that is often described, it's an eclipse. So there's an eclipse happening. And in the foreground, you see these 8 cups. And the thing about the 8 cups is that they're not spilling. Okay. There's another cups card in which the cups are spilt. That's the 5 of cups. Yeah, this one. See? In the 5 of cups, the cups are spilled, right? In the 8 of cups, the cups are intact. So what you're seeing here is somebody walking away from a situation that seems like it's working. Somebody here is walking away from a situation that maybe it seems like it should be fulfilling, right? He or she is walking away. They're walking up a mountain. So it's they're walking away from a situation that should be fulfilling into a situation that presents more difficulty. Yeah, there's a lot to that card. Love that card. Okay, so that's an example of a cups card. I don't think I showed you pentacles. Let me show you pentacles. Yes. Here we go. Here are the pentacles. Oh, actually, you know what? The Ace of Pentacles is one of my favorites. I'll show you that one. The Ace of Pentacles is one of my faves. The 10 of Pentacles is also a huge fave of mine. That one's really complicated, though. I won't get into that one. The Ace of Pentacles, it shows a garden, right? The nature of Pentacles is so Pentacles as a suit, I'll talk about that in just a second, what each one is associated with. I'll just leave this one up here, actually, the Ace of Pentacles, while I talk about the suits. Okay. So in the minor arcana, each suit, there are 4 suits. Each suit has 14 cards, and they are pentacles, right? Which is this sort of, actually pentacles used to be coins. So when you look at this pentacle and you're like, what the heck is this? I know what a sword is. I know what a wand is. Although then you find out that a wand is actually a staff. And it's kind of like, well, what the heck is a wand, right? I know what a sword is. I vaguely know what a wand is. I know what a cup is. What's a pentacle? And pentacle, actually, that suit used to be called coins. And pentacles, the association of pentacles is pentacles are associated with material reality. They are associated with the element of earth. The suit of pentacles is associated with the classic element of earth. And pentacles as a suit is associated with your body, right? Pentacles as a suit is associated with, it is in the realm of things that you can see and touch, right? That's why it's coins, right? It's the currency of the world we all inhabit, right? Pentacles are associated with your body. They're associated with the earth. They're associated with building something up, right? That's why the Ace of Pentacles is a garden, right? Something has been out of the wilderness of planet Earth. Human beings have walled off some of that wildness and made a garden. That's what is kind of being conveyed in this suit. But then you can see this is a very beautiful symbol that in the garden, in the wall of the garden, there is a gate, there is an archway, there is a way out of the garden, right? So one of the interpretations of the Ace of Pentacles is that it's reminding you that while the garden is very nice and very beautiful and you've managed to make the garden, there is a way out of the garden. There is always a way back to your wildness. There is always a way back to your wildness. Love that card. Okay, so the 4 suits, Pentacles is associated with earth. It's associated with your body. Pentacles, historically, it meant coins, right? So Pentacles, again, Pentacles are about material reality, what you can see and touch. Next suit, let's do this. Here's the Ace of Cups. Next suit is Cups. Cups are associated with the element of water and with the part of your human experience or your humanness that is your emotions. Cups are associated with water and they are associated with emotions. Maybe that makes sense to you. It makes a lot of intuitive sense to me, just because my experience of emotions is that they are something that flows, and that there's this wateriness to them, that they kind of, one bleeds into the next one, and they seep into every other part of your life, right? So if pentacles are associated with earth and the body and the material world that we live in, cups are associated with the element of water and your emotional life, right? And that's the Ace of Cups. And you can see there that the cup is overflowing in the Ace, right? The water, the cup is really more like a fountain. And then here you see some of the Christian symbolism of the culture that the tarot deck came from, right? In this white bird who is associated with peace, right? And that little circle you see there, that's often that's like the host, right? That's often described as a communion wafer, which you can, I don't know, if you're a Christian and that speaks to you, great. And if not, you can just ignore you can ignore the bird or ignore the host or what have you. That's totally fine, right? The thing that you see in this card, in the Ace of Cups, is this sense that there is this immense fountaining abundance pouring out of the cup. Okay, so that's cups. Here's the Ace of Swords. Swords. I've told you before that swords are often thought of as a difficult suit, and there's a lot of really sort of painful cards in the swords suit, I will tell you. So this is the Ace of Swords. Why are swords painful? Well, swords are associated with the element of air, right? Air, your mind, thinking, everything sort of up here that swirls. Things that move through the air tend to move very quickly, right? In the way that your thoughts move quickly. And you can see that the Ace of Swords, what's happening here, you can see that the landscape that the Ace of Swords is in, it's not a freaking garden. Like, you're not in freaking Pentacle land now anymore, right? You're not in a pretty garden. You're in a freaking mountainous, barren landscape. Swords are very intense. Your thoughts, if you do not have a practice of working with your thoughts and challenging your thoughts, like if you're in the habit of believing every thought that goes through your mind, your thoughts can lay waste to your whole freaking life, right? Because so often our thoughts are just about how horrible we are and how horrible the world is. Yes. So thoughts have the power to cut, right? A knife can be used for good or for ill, and that's sort of expressed in this Ace of Swords card, right? You see though how it's also crowned. Like, it's crowned. The swords, the life force of swords, the energetic charge of swords is powerful and potent and sharp. And again, it can be used for good or for ill. So that's swords. What else do we have? Oh yeah, wands. Okay, wands. Swords are associated with thoughts. Cups are associated with emotions. Pentacles are associated with your body. I can only describe this card as priapic, frankly. Looks a little bit like a penis. I'm not going to lie to you. Ace of Wands. Here's the Ace of Wands. Yeah. Wands are associated with the element of fire. They're associated with your spirit. They are associated with like the spark of your life force. So you can see in the Ace of Wands, it's almost blooming, right? It's a staff. It's a wooden staff, but it's actually, there's so much power and potency in the Ace of Wands that it's actually like little shoots are growing off of the Ace of Wands. And you can see that unlike swords, the landscape that the Ace of Wands appears in, it's not barren, right? There's water going through the landscape. it's not, but it's also not like Pentacles, right? Pentacles is a walled garden. There is this sense of Pentacles that like somebody has come in and made it nice. And Ace of Wands is more wild. That's sort of what's happening more in the background. So those are the 4 suits of a tarot deck. Okay. Then I also want to let you know that each suit has 14 cards, right? Ace through 10. I showed you the aces for each suit. And then each suit has numbered cards and then court cards. And unlike a deck like you might think of with a regular playing card deck, where there are, let me put a couple of cards out here to show this to you, where you have Jack, Queen, King. In a tarot deck, there are 4 court cards in each suit instead of 3. And the figure of the Jack, who, like, the Jack in a regular deck of cards, right, is sort of like, is he what? Like the prince? Is he a knight, right? What's his deal? Is he the child of the queen and the king, right? And you can see here that what a tarot deck, instead of having a Jack, has a page and a knight. This is the Page of Wands, and this is the Knight of Wands. Yes, the pages in each suit are associated with the emerging youthful sort of force of each suit or power of each suit. The Knight of each suit, knights are the life force or the prana of the suit in action. Let's see here. Kings are the most manifest and mastered version of the energy of the suit. It's the King of Wands. There's the Queen of Wands, her little black cat. Queens are thought of as the more sort of occult, hidden, and subtler versions of the life force of the suit, the vibe of the suit. Yes, so those are the court cards. So each suit has four court cards. Has a page, a king, a queen, and a knight. Okay. So last of all, thank you for listening to all this. I can't believe it. I always think I'm going to talk for 20 minutes. It's always about an hour. I don't know what's up with that. Okay. So how I actually do a draw. So I've had all my cards separated out here. Now I'm going to pick them all up again. And I'm going to shuffle them. Right? Here's my deck. I'm just going to shuffle like you know. First I do this, right? Just classic, like you usually would. I play a lot of card games in my family, so this is a big thing. And I do the usual. You cut the deck, right? This is not, there's no rules about this, okay? Last night when I was doing this with my friends, they were like, oh, do you knock on the deck? Is it okay for somebody to touch the cards? Some people don't like you to touch their cards. I can see how if I were a professional reader and I was reading for somebody else in person, I wouldn't want every Joe Schmo touching my deck, right? But the way that I'm talking about this, I'm hoping that maybe you'll get your own deck, right? And you can touch your own card. I don't like if you're hanging out with me, you can touch my cards, right? There's no specific prescribed way. You get to make whatever ritual works for you, or that's the way that I do it, right? Because let me tell you, I used to say all the time in yoga, there's no pope of yoga, right? As much as everybody would like to tell you that there's really only one way to do it and that they're the one that happens to know the one way or the exact right way. The truth is that throughout the history of yoga, and it's like especially now, everybody has their own idea of what yoga is or what yoga should be, right? And certainly I feel like some people or some cultures or some groups have more of a claim to define what yoga is, but in practice, every Joe Schmo has their own idea of what yoga should be. And a tarot deck is the same way. There's no pope of tarot, Or if there is, it's card number 5, trump number 5, the Hierophant. But nobody's going to come and get you if you don't, like there's no right way to do it, right? I shuffle the cards. Yeah. And then I just do this. I think of a question. While I'm shuffling, I think of a question. And the 2 questions I often ask myself is, what will the day bring? That's my first question. I'll often ask, what will the day bring? So let me do a little draw on that for myself. What's this day going to bring for me today? What will this day bring today? Okay. What did I get? Oh, that's a nice one. That's the 10 of Cups. That's the 10 of Cups. That was nice, right? Sometimes you get the Death card. The Death card doesn't necessarily actually mean death. Just laughing at the idea of me doing a draw for myself on this live and getting the Death card, and you guys being like, "Oh my God, yeah, she got the Death card." Yeah, so the Death card doesn't actually mean death. It means often like it refers to something being transformed. But this is a pretty unequivocally awesome card. I'm like, geez, I hope I have this card is sort of saying that I might have a great day, right? There's 10 cups, there's a rainbow, there's a family. This is like happy days, this card. I'm going to have a great day today. So that's the first question I often ask when I do my draw. And then I pick that card up. And the second question I like to ask is, what would you have me know? What would you have me know? Who is the you in that sentence? I don't know. I don't know, and I don't have to know, right? The whole reason why I work with a tarot deck in the first place is that I want to make contact with the part of myself that is not the thinker. Do you get what I'm saying? When I work with a deck, I am trying to make contact with the parts of myself that are not this jumpy monkey mind, this jumpy, overthinky, not feeling very much part of myself. I'm trying to get away from that, yeah? Or I'm trying to experience these other parts of myself. So I don't really, like when I think about this question, what would you have me know? That's a question I got from a tarot podcast that I love by a woman named Lindsay Mack. I got that question from her. Who's the you? I don't know. Is my you the same as Lindsay's you, right? When it's like, what would you have me know? Is Lindsay, I don't know, maybe Lindsay's a Christian. And when she says, what would you have me know? She's thinking, I doubt it. I listened to the rest of her podcast. She doesn't strike me as a Christian lady, but maybe she is. Maybe she is. So maybe when she's saying, what would you have me know? She's asking God to speak to her through her cards. That's not what I'm doing. Maybe people who ask the question, what would you have me know? Maybe what they're thinking is the you is some kind of occult cosmic spirit, right? That's speaking to them. Or maybe it's one of their ancestors that's speaking to them through the cards. I kind of like the idea that if an ancestor of mine wanted to talk to me, that she would speak to me through my cards. Although I also kind of really hope that if any of my ancestors want to talk to me, they'll just pick up the phone or whatever that is. Pick up the cosmic phone. I don't know. So what would you have me know? Who's the you? I don't know. I don't have it defined personally. Spirit? Could be. Okay. What would you have me know? I think about the question. Then I like to, actually, this is a thing I will often do. I didn't do it with the first question, but I often will put my hand on the deck and say, what would you have me know? And then I just do the same thing. What did I get for this one? 7 of Wands. Seven of Wands. This is a card. This card is about struggle, right? Well, I mean, like, what do you see in this card? What do you see in this card? Just to describe it, a youth, a young man, maybe, stands on a kind of a cliff or a raised place, holding a wand or a staff, and there are 6 additional staffs kind of rising up from a lower place. Doesn't this have the vibe that he's about to like he's on top and he is about to joust with some people below? So there is this quality in the 7 of Wands card of and like if you look closely, he's got one sock pulled up and like the other sock is either pulled down or is missing or something's up with his footwear. Um, so this card, it could be about conflict. It could also be about a sense of isolation. Because one thing about this guy is that he's got himself he's got himself up on this little hill, right? It's just him. There's nobody else around him, and he's fighting everybody off. So I don't know. I look at this and I'm like, what would you have me know? The way I'm kind of thinking I might lean into this is I have this tendency to isolate myself sometimes. And I also have the tendency to think that the world I live in is out to get me. I think this is normal. I think everybody kind of thinks that sometimes. So this to me would be a reminder to myself. Yeah, you don't have to carry this vibe into your day of like you're all by yourself and you're being assailed by the world that you live in. Unfortunately, I put away I shuffled back in the 10 of Cups, right? But do you recollect that card I had before? Like the world can be more like, you can have more of a relaxed vibe, like the 10 of Cups, which I could kill myself trying to dig out of this deck, but I won't. Okay. So there you go. Hopefully that gives you some idea of how a tarot deck works, how I use it, what the suits are. This has been really fun for me to share with you. And if you have any questions, feel free to just ask me. I love to talk about this shit. And I'll see you around the interwebs. Now it's like, how do I turn this off? End broadcast. Okay. Bye, everybody.